Hello YouTube, this is TNG here. So today I'm going to be talking about my initial first computer build, and technically it's still the one I'm using now, but of course I have made modifications and upgrades since originally putting it together. So this is just kind of forgetting about those upgrades, and this is really just my initial PC build. I didn't originally use PC Part Picker, I just kind of put it together on here. And yeah, and I'm not saying this is the best build by any means. Definitely not. I made a lot of mistakes and I wasn't really thinking about some things because I didn't really know as much when I was first building. This was my first PC. And you may notice I'm not actually on a PC, not by, modern definition of PC usually entails Windows, but no, I'm actually on a Mac because I'm actually on a Hackintosh right now. So yes, this is technically a Hackintosh build. In fact, I took most of this build from Tony Mac X86's website, but I'm not going to be showing this off as a Hackintosh build. I'm just going to be showing this off as my original first build. I'm actually dual booting Mac and Windows, so it still is a PC technically, even though really a PC just means personal computers. So technically everything should be a PC. But anyway, beyond that, let's get started. So, at the brains of the build, which is still at the brains of my build, because I love this processor, is the Intel Core i5 4690K. Yes, the infamous 4690K, literally the first processor that shows up when you're looking through PC Part Picker and you select processor. So yeah, this is a very popular processor, 3.5 gigahertz quad core. It's nice. It's very nice. It works great for gaming builds, especially since, you don't really need an i7. I don't think it's worth the extra $100 to get an i7 at all. The 4690K benchmarks are very close to the 4790K on like CPU boss and things like that. So it's a great processor. Highly recommend it. Next up is the CPU cooler. So being that I was going to be doing gaming and stuff like that, I figured I'd get a cheap cooler and one that was also thin, because those really tall ones don't always fit, especially since my mid-tower case is relatively thin. So I went with the very flat Gemini M4, and it's not the best processor in the world. It doesn't even look like the best, not best processor. It's not the best cooler in the world. It doesn't really look like the best cooler in the world, but it definitely gets the job done. It keeps my CPU temps at a good level. Looks, yeah, normally they're in like the 30s. I guess because I'm a screen recording and it's kind of showing up as a bit higher than it should be. Strange though, normally it's 30s no matter what I'm doing. Something must be different. Anyway, that's still fine if you're doing like 40s and low 50s. That's definitely not going to kill anything. And even when I'm gaming, it doesn't really go beyond 60 ever, so yeah, Cooler Master Gemini M4 gets the job done. Next up is my motherboard. So I got the Gigabyte GA-Z97MX Gaming M5. It's a micro ATX size motherboard, and it's got the LGA 1150 CPU socket. And of course, when selecting a motherboard for Hackintosh, I had to make sure that it had the correct audio chipset and Ethernet chipset. But yeah, this is a great motherboard. It works wonderfully. It has lots of it's got lots of great I/O. If we can just check this out. Yeah, it's got like 8 USBs and pretty much everything you need in terms of video and audio output and input, really. Okay, so that is my motherboard. Next up on the list is RAM. So I used the Crucial Ballistics Tactical memory. I only really got it because it was recommended by Tony Mac X86, and I didn't know that at the time anyway, that pretty much any memory is going to work with Hackintoshes. So I kind of just went with the one that they were suggesting, even though it's a bit more expensive than normal 8 gig memory is, because I guess the tactical is supposed to be like better than the sport or something. Crucial Ballistic Sport memory, which I actually recommended in one of my other builds. But anyway, this memory works great. It's been doing fine. It looks pretty cool too. Yeah, Crucial Ballistics Tactical. RAM is RAM, right? And if we look, I do currently have 8 gig 1600 megahertz DDR3, so Hackintosh does pick it up just fine. Next, we have the SSD. Now, this wasn't particularly smart of me. I definitely should have gone with just like a 120 gig SSD, like a terabyte HDD, but I was very uninformed, and I figured that I'd probably want to keep everything on one drive instead of having like a boot drive, and then like I didn't even know how that would really work at the time. So definitely not smart of me, but I did get this, and honestly 500 gig SSD is very nice. It's good to have in there, especially since I have two operating systems. It means I can allocate 250 gigs to each operating system and all like the programs and files I use the most. And then since creating this build, I have added extra storage. So I actually added like a terabyte of the Western Digital Caviar Blue storage, and that is very fast storage. However, doesn't hold a candle to the Samsung 850 EVO. So I would definitely recommend this SSD. Maybe go with a smaller SSD, especially if you're only planning on installing one operating system on your computer. 250 gigabytes should be more than enough, or even 120 really should be fine. Next up is graphics. So I just went with the GT 740 because it's supposed to have good Hackintosh compatibility and all of that good stuff, especially as a starting graphics card, since I kind of wanted to keep my budget at least as much down as possible. And since I didn't really want a full-on gaming machine at the time, but just kind of like when I feel like it, I'll do a little bit of gaming. And yeah, this graphics card is perfect for that kind of thing because it's only like $100 or 120, I guess, for the 4 gig model, and it runs games at like generally like medium to high settings at like 1080p, 60 FPS. So yeah, it's a good card. I do recommend it. For like more casual. Like if you're going really heavy stuff, at least as a starter card, I would probably start with the 750 at least instead, the GTX 750. But yeah, and soon I'm going to be upgrading to the GTX 970, which is a bit overkill, I know, especially since my monitor can't really handle more than 60 FPS. It's only 60 hertz monitor. But I wanted to make sure that I could max out all games at 1080p. But anyway, beyond my future upgrade plans, I actually still have this card in my system, and it works wonders. Anyway, case. So now this case. Now I'm not planning on changing it anytime soon, because cases are kind of a pain in the butt to change, and it's definitely a good. It works well enough, and it's cheap. It's not too expensive. That, as you can see, for at its cheapest point, it's only like $30. Actually, it's on Newegg, so that's a pretty good deal. But yeah, this is the Design Core 1000. It's got USB 3 in the front. You can't actually see it on here, but oh no, you kind of can. It's right there on the right front. And then you have a 120 millimeter fan in the front, an optional 120 millimeter fan in the side, and then a 92 millimeter fan in the rear, which is also optional. So this case is okay. It's got a really strange hard drive mounting system where you kind of like screw in hard drives onto this sort of vertical panel thing. I don't know. It's strange, but it works. What I really don't like about this case is two things. One, that there's no sort of CPU cooler opening area on the back of it, on the on like the right side panel. There is none of that. So yeah, if you're gonna be putting on a CPU cooler, if you want to mount anything on the back of the CPU, on the back, yeah, you're gonna want to have to remove your motherboard from the case, or at least do it before putting it in the case to begin with. And of course, if you ever want to switch your CPU cooler, you have to take out the entire motherboard and just take out everything, and it's a big mess. And then the second thing I don't like about this case is the cable management is terrible. It's almost a necessity to get like a semi-modular power supply if you're going to be getting this case, because there's like no cable management to speak of. Everything's just going to be kind of hanging out in there. And I mean, for me, the airflow's been okay. It hasn't been getting too hot, like I've said. Honestly, I think this HW monitor software overdoes it a bit, especially since like on my Windows partition, it never really shows this high when I'm just like screen recording or whatever. So I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, that's the case. I do like the case, not my favorite, but it looks nice. It's got a simple, clean look, and it works. Yeah, I'm using it right now. And then finally, the Corsair CSM 550 watt, 80 plus gold certified semi-modular power supply. Highly, highly, highly recommend this power supply if you can afford it, because it is a pretty damn expensive power supply, but it is so nice, and it offers great upgradability. Like, it's going to be able to easily handle my GTX 970, and it's semi-modular, so like I said, that's like almost a necessity for this case that's in my build. And yeah, it is 550 watts, so lots of wattage there for as much upgradability as you want or need. And then finally in my build is the TP-Link PCI Express Wi-Fi adapter. It's 802.11a BGN, and yeah, it's a Wi-Fi adapter. The reason I picked this one in particular is because this Wi-Fi adapter is by far the best one for Hackintoshes. Actually, I think it's like pretty much the only one you can get to work with Hackintoshes. And what's great for Hackintosh anyway is it doesn't even require any drivers or anything really. It just works out of the box with both Mac and Windows. So, love this Wi-Fi adapter. Would recommend it even if you're just getting like a Windows build. Anyway, yeah, that's my initial build. Looking back, I really haven't changed that much yet. It hasn't been that long since I got this build. But like I said, I am planning on upgrading the graphics card, and I did upgrade the storage a bit since I found 500 gigs not to be enough for everything that I want to do. But, well, especially with two operating systems. But yeah, this is my build, and I just thought you might find this interesting. Don't recommend this exact build. I would, for example, maybe get a better CPU cooler, and a better case, and better graphics card if you're looking to do some better gaming. But honestly, I do recommend several of the parts in here, as I've said. Anyway, that's my video. Like, comment, favorite, subscribe. This is TNG signing out. See ya.